Hello, Joe Rogan. This clip is from Denton County Collective. Please
Mm-hmm.
listen and alter your performances
Fucking do that
accordingly.
shit. For sure.
Yeah. There you go.
Force me, gag me, 85 me.
Piccola bambola di carne, la corsa è caduta ed in pezzi è finita.
If you can't beat them,
they gave grenades out, packed with cyanide. High octane hatred, they're ready to fly. Lies within lies, keeping cunts in power. There's something fucked up with human nature, they said.
if you can't beat them, ban them. You gotta learn to fight dirty. If you can't beat them, burn them. You gotta learn to fight dirty. If you can't beat it, feel it.
Talking about the social dilemma and the concept that truth and fact is it's a little more difficult to get to nowadays, and the concept of truth and fact is really different at the individual level depending on where you get your information, depending on how you get your information, especially if you're getting it from social media. You could all have the same friends and your social media feeds vastly look completely different, right? Because the very nature of the algorithm is designed to keep you engaged, right? So no matter what your engagement is, right, it's designed to keep you coming back to it. So yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to watch it yet. The guy that made it was on Rogan recently, and I wanted to check it out. So anyway,
I actually listened to that.
yeah.
Joe Rogan is not my favorite person, so I'm not endorsing him fully. Yeah, I'd like to woke him on trans things because unfortunately...
I would love to know your perspective on that as well. We can get into that at some point too.
Unfortunately, his, I guess, laziness or just completely lack of curiosity to get anything having to do with the trans population in the United States. His complete lack of curiosity is contributing to a culture of violence against the trans community. So it's really important that people learn about this and intervene to protect specifically trans youth, poor trans people, the homeless trans people, and especially trans women of color. I just posted on my Facebook today, we lost the 34th known American trans person in the United States to be murdered. And we're in November, so it's been something like 42 weeks, and we've had 34 Americans, transgender Americans, who were murdered by violence.
That's terrible.
So I think I don't really follow Rogan that closely, but I listened to his interview with his latest interview with Snowden.
Yeah, Snowden. Yep.
Yeah, and it was just really brilliant, and he asks important questions sometimes, and you get really fruitful conversation. But but Joe Rogan's always ready to throw the trans community under the bus.
Well,
and to give you an example of
ahead.
somebody who has evolved on this, Jimmy Dore is also a comedian that I think is a little unhinged. But he's actually cited. He says, I used to make jokes about the trans community, and then I learned about them more and trans issues. And he doesn't joke about us anymore.
Right.
Yep.
Right. For sure.
And
I also think it's long overdue for him to actually get somebody from the trans community onto the show and actually talk to them and get their perspective too. I would love to actually hear that conversation.
I vote Natalie Wynn of ContraPoints. If you don't know
Natalie Wynn, who is that for the audience?
Oh heavens. Y'all need to binge watch all of ContraPoints tonight after the
ContraPoints, okay.
ContraPoints. Okay. It will change your life.
Best commentary at 10th Annual Steamy Awards.
I like that.
Is this
So-
on YouTube? Is this on, what is this? Is this somewhere
On YouTube.
YouTube? Okay.
So I do follow Rogan quite a bit, and I certainly can't speak for him, right? And I would love for him to have somebody from the trans community on and actually talk about. Though I can say though, because I do listen quite a bit, that the times that I have heard him talk about trans issues are really only in regards to a particular facet of his life that he's very involved in, and that's mixed martial arts. His perspective, and he's actually said this many, many times from what I, have heard, is basically, in life, do what you want. That's fine. Perfectly okay. His only, I think, beef with anything involving the trans community was involving men who had transitioned to be women and then fight other women in mixed martial arts. When men have historically speaking and sort of naturally speaking, and I'm overgeneralizing here. I know, of course, there's exceptions to this, but men
isn't
in
that the
general
issue?
have a lot more muscle and power than women. And so someone who's been genetically a man for a long time and then fights other women in mixed martial arts, in his view, it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to the opponent. And that was his perspective on that. And when he comments on trans issues, it's generally that.
Can I respond?
Yeah,
Of course.
please
Yeah,
do.
please. Because I would love to hear your
So
perspective on this.
So like hearing you say genetically man, or someone who was a man and transitioned to be a woman,
Right.
like that makes my blood boil.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever you believe, however you understand gender, I can tell you that trans women like myself were never men. Never. Because gender is not defined by anybody else. It's defined by ourselves.
Definitely.
It's a self-conviction. And
Fully.
it's a self-conviction that is measured by, it's a social construct. It's measured by the society and the social environment that we're brought up in.
Right.
So certain traits in one ethnic practice, in one geography, may be construed as masculine, whereas it's read as feminine in another ethnicity or geography. So when we talk about gender being a construct, that's what we're talking about. And so when we're talking about gender identity, it has to do with your brain.
Definitely.
And
yeah.
So for people to talk about this issue, even if you have real convictions that you really believe and you mean no harm towards the trans community, you are basically using the N-word against trans people when you say things like a man who transitioned to a woman.
Right. Okay.
And that's what
or when you're saying someone who is genetically a male or man for a long time.
And that's why this conversation right here is super important, because I love having you on, and I love being able to get the perspective of someone from the community. So
maybe you date trans women, maybe you fuck trans women. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word, but maybe you are not violent towards trans women as a heterosexual cisgender male. Maybe you're not.
Right.
That language is used to fuel misinformation, to fearmonger about trans bodies.
Definitely.
And people use that frame of thinking and speaking to justify violence against the trans community.
Right.
Whenever we are murdered, there's something called the trans panic defense. People in court will say, well, I was tricked because I thought they were a woman. And that it doesn't get rid of their guilt, but it lessens maybe the sentence that they get. So essentially, if you invoke trans panic, and this is the thing, and look it up in the United States.
I've never even heard of it. That's interesting.
In most states, if you kill a trans woman, you're a straight cisgender man, and you're on a date with a trans woman, and you find out she's a trans woman in the middle of that date, and you feel threatened because your masculinity is very, very narrow and thin, and you're already kind of unhinged on that. If you kill that trans woman and go to court because you murdered this trans woman, if you invoke trans panic, your sentence will be less severe.
So-
Because it is
That is
okay.
crazy.
It is okay under
That's the
our
same
laws.
crime.
right.
Under our laws to murder trans people.
And that's what really I think is
That's messed
really
up.
difficult about that argument, Ben, is that I understand the physiological argument about like high school women's sports. I mean, I kind of get it. It's a physiological argument. But the problem is that just having the argument hurts
It's
the trans community.
monolithic.
I get it. I'm just saying just having the argument, which is it's got to happen in like high school sports to a degree, but just having the argument hurts the trans community, which is what's so bad about it. And we have to find a way to have that argument at some point, but it has to happen in a different way. And we just don't, most people just don't understand. I mean, I don't even, like most people just don't understand how much damage it does.
That's exactly right. No,
people,
that's exactly right.
Like
Yeah.
that we don't even know about a legal argument for like killing a human being and then getting away with it is wrong. I understand like the people who are involved in like competitive sports and how that is an issue. And it's been an issue in like tennis, probably longer historically than anywhere else, maybe.
Like
But-
Serena Williams isn't built like a shit brick house. Come on.
But
These are
that's
monolithic
like-
arguments. No matter
Yeah,
where
and then
you
also
come
people
from.
don't even understand what hormones do to you. So if you transition, and Mari, please jump in. Please fucking jump in and save me.
Well, I'm waiting for you to finish your point.
But like when you start taking hormones, I mean that changes your chemistry of your body. That changes.
Does Ben not know that?
I don't know. That's why
yeah,
I'm bringing
yeah,
it
I
You
up.
don't know that?
I don't
know that.
So whenever you are assigned male at birth and you go through an adult, this is my experience. And maybe I read more femme for trans women. I don't know your experience with trans women, but I believe that I tend to be a pretty, an easy to consume version of trans for most people.
Congratulations.
Viewers, Mari is trans.
It's not supposed to be a compliment. Like
No, of course
you said congratulations,
Right.
not.
but
No, that was
That's-
sarcasm.
Like I
That's
said,
kind of-
those words.
but that even that word passable
Yeah,
is
that's what I'm saying.
hurtful.
Yep.
It's hurtful because what you're implying is that if I'm not passing, that I'm failing, and also that my humanity is worth less if I'm not assumed to be a cisgender woman.
Your value is tied to my perspective of what value is.
Right.
So, like, people don't even know how to talk about this sensitively because
That's very true.
The trans community has so little of representation and a voice in any position of power. And it's such an important conversation to have because, the idea of gender, what in order to transition your gender, you have to understand your gender as something bigger than male or female.
That's exactly right.
It's not
Yeah.
black and white. You have to imagine I'm a human being,
Yes.
and all human beings as fetuses are female. And there's a point at which the chromosomes and sex hormones and other biological factors influence what comes out of the womb. But there are other factors that determine what a human being's gender is. So until we can understand this as a gray area in itself and we're comfortable with that, the conversation is not going to be sensitive enough. That's the first thing. As far as the athletics go, there was a local case, I want to say like 3 or 4 years ago, here in the HEB-ISD. I believe his name was Mac Gibbs. I can't remember exactly. This was at Trinity High School. And the Texas UIL basically said in wrestling that Mac was a young trans man who was on hormone therapy. He took testosterone. And I feel like we're getting off topic, but I think it's really important.
I think this is important as hell.
Yeah.
I think we should keep on it.
So,
personally. Yep.
he was taking hormone therapy, which was approved by his doctor, which was approved by his parents or his guardians. And the Texas UIL said that because of his birth certificate, he had to compete against girls in the girls wrestling. So that was the rules on the book. If you saw this young man, you could easily tell that this person was male. Okay? It's evident in his voice, in his body, and everything.
Right.
Because that's what hormones do. Hormone therapy is called therapy because it amends the bad things that hormones do to trans people.
It accentuates the positives, though.
And he went to win
So he won. He won twice. He won, I believe it was
the
his
state
junior
championship.
year.
Mac Biggs won the state championship twice. Wanted to not wrestle in that category class. Women had to, won, and was booed like off like the championship ring, winning as woman, but was forced to compete as a woman too. So it wasn't even her choice.
His choice.
Their choice.
Her choice.
Thank you so much.
Joe, I was gonna say,
Are you at a
hey,
drive-through?
Joe I saw him on mute.
Joe?
And I'm like, please be safe,
What
Joe.
are you doing?
Be safe, Joe. Mute
What are you
yourself and be
You
safe.
better
I'm
be
mostly just-
delivering food to all of us.
Yeah. Pick me up on number two or whatever that is.
So there was outrage. You had fathers of daughters saying, I don't want this boy beating up my girls.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it was the rule on the Texas books. Even after the first year he won the state championship against girls. And then the second year, his senior year, he won it again. And there was a case brought up, but the Texas UIL said, no, this person has F on their birth certificate. They compete against girls.
Hmm.
So for there to be a double standard, we're allowing trans men on T competing against men, but we're not allowing trans women on HRT, on hormone therapy, to compete against women. That's a double standard, and that's actually sex discrimination.
I'm sorry I said that. I thought it was it was a different thing, but no. Yeah. Female to male.
I mean, that's ignoring the base argument that a man could beat any woman. You know, like any man could beat any woman in a fight, and that's just not true.
That's exactly right. There's totally different weight classes. There's, and especially
There's
in martial
different styles. There's different maneuvers. Yeah.
Right. And there's different ways they try to segment everything down in mixed martial arts to make it as competitively fair as possible. And I think that's the main
But that's the Joe Rogan argument. It's not as fair as possible. Like that's the argument for that.
Physically, right?
That's
from a physical standpoint, exactly.
Generalizing.
Right, but when you
it's
say
very
trans
generalizing.
woman,
That's true.
when you say trans woman and you believe in your head, oh, this person used to be a man, you are projecting a certain bias against this person. I'm here to tell you that if you have somebody competing in MMA that started their hormone therapy at age 30, their hormone chemistry, their body chemistry is going to be different than if they started hormone therapy at age 20. If they started at age 15, you're going to end up with a trans woman that did not have nearly as many negative effects from the biological first adolescence, meaning testosterone does things to your body to masculinize your body. If a trans woman has the ability, has the resources, because of geography and because of moral support and because of money, if she has the resources to begin her hormone therapy as a teenager, she's going to be readily seen as a cis woman because she will not have the negative effects of a testosterone predominant adolescence at all. So if you intervene, so when you talk about, trans women, you cannot just, blanket trans women as former men.
Of course.
At all. There's so many different factors, but the fact of the matter is
that's very true.
when people talk about like the Olympics, there used to be a conversation about race, about, oh, you're Black, so you have this advantage in this category in this way. That's racist. If you can say in one breath that is racist, then you can understand that it is sexist to exclude trans women competing in female athletic categories.
Absolutely.
So we've had a comment on this online, and I kind of, maybe this is where we should go with this conversation. The problem is, what's good about wrestling and with boxing, what's good about those sports in terms of equality and gender is that it's mostly done by weight class.
That's right.
Now
That's
you can have a physiological argument about the different weights and the different genders, right? You could, but the thing is like those sports, 120 pound less of a person, I think that's a great place to start and say, look, everyone under 120 pounds, they can fight, and 110, 120, they can fight in this class. I think that might be a place where this conversation would be easier for like a boxing or a wrestling, but where it gets more complex, it's just then how do you do it for, football is easy because there's really only one. There's not a really female football, but like soccer and other sports, that gets a little bit more, I guess, complicated to talk about. But that's the whole point with what Mario you're saying is it's, this is like, it's like the wrong kind of argument to be having about it. But yeah, it's being had though, and it's just how do we have that argument most constructively?
And not hurt the community. I think to Mari's point, if the conversation is being had, how can it be had constructively with people in the community and not, hurting the community?
They listen
that's
first.
Awareness, right?
You need to have trans people in the room.
Yes.
Right.
For sure.
You don't have them do not discuss trans issues if there are not trans people at the table, please.
Yeah. And also that goes for females' rights too, by the way, politicians.
That's very true.
Okay.
You need a female in the room voting. Hello,
Absolutely.
Brian Webster. I see you on
Hello.
video. Thank you for joining.
Hi, Jay.
Hello. I feel that people need to just listen to these conversations before they meet a trans person so they understand this stuff. In Mari's first episode, I turned her list into an Instagram video that we put on the Denton County Collective, and on TikTok as public access guy, it was I think my third video, and I wanted people to understand the list, the things that they shouldn't say, and I was listening to Ben, and I was like 1, 2, 3.
Ouch.
Know what I mean? But that's
Ouch.
my point, is you didn't hear the list. Maybe if you had heard the list a few times like I did through editing and adding and sharing, you would be better prepared.
Well, and you think you're supportive of a group and you're not, and you don't realize you really talk to them and you really are friends with them.
I just want to say Joe Rogan's platform is massive.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's using this language that Jason is pointing out, then it's basically becoming part of the culture and
it's pervasive.
But this is how we talk about trans issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you right now that language perpetuates violence against the trans community in the sense that language is the same language that is used to justify violence against the trans community.
Yep.
And we love having that talk here. We've been doing a little more of that every episode. We try to undo social norms and just a little bit talking about it amongst ourselves. And I think that's how those paradigms shift.
I think so too. And
absolutely.
Hello, Joe Rogan. This clip is from Denton County Collective. Mm-hmm. Please listen and alter your performances accordingly.
For sure.
Yeah. There you go.